I once believed family was sacred. Then my son-in-law left me to die in the desert after murdering my daughter. This is how I survived, uncovered the truth, and brought him to justice. One desperate step at a time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The first thing I noticed was his hands. How steady they were as he adjusted his tie in the funeral home mirror while I collapsed inside, grieving my only child. My daughter Eliza's coffin was just 20 feet away, surrounded by flower arrangements from her millions of followers. And Nathan, her husband of 6 years, hadn't shed a single tear when we were alone. "You need to eat something, Martha," he said, his voice carrying that practiced concern he'd perfected for the cameras outside. The media had swarmed the small historic church, hungry for footage of the famous lifestyle influencer's grieving family. I nodded mechanically, unable to process food or comfort or anything beyond the gaping hole where my heart used to be. Just 3 days ago, police officers had appeared at our door with news about a car accident on Eagle Mountain. "The brakes failed," they'd said. "She died instantly." "I'll manage," I whispered, clutching the locket containing Eliza's childhood photo. Something in Nathan's eyes flickered. Annoyance? Before his camera-ready compassion returned. As mourners filed in, I retreated to a quiet hallway, desperate for air. That's when I heard it. Nathan's voice, sharp and urgent, coming from a side room. "We stick to the plan. She's starting to ask questions about the accounts." A deeper voice responded. "Too many people around. We'll discuss later." I froze as the door opened. Nathan emerged with a broad-shouldered man I'd never seen before. Both stopped abruptly when they saw me. "Martha, how long have you been standing there?" Nathan's voice rose an octave. "Just needed some space," I managed, noting how quickly the stranger disappeared down the hall. Nathan's arm wrapped around my shoulders, steering me back toward the crowd. His fingers dug into my flesh with unexpected force. "Who was that man?" I asked. "Just the funeral director, discussing some details." The lie slid effortlessly from his lips. The service passed in a blur. I watched Nathan perform grief perfectly for the cameras, his eulogy moving strangers to tears, while I sat stone-faced, unable to reconcile the daughter he described with the vibrant, thoughtful woman I'd raised. Later, as we prepared to leave the cemetery, I reached for my purse and discovered Eliza's phone. The police had returned her personal effects that morning. On impulse, I slipped it into my pocket instead of giving it to Nathan. In the car, driving away from my daughter's grave, something about Nathan's conversation nagged at me. Accounts, questions. I remembered Eliza mentioning financial concerns during our last lunch together. "Nathan," I said carefully as darkness fell around us, "who was that man you were speaking with? The one who wasn't the funeral director?" The car slowed. Nathan's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as he turned to me, his handsome face transformed by something cold and calculating I'd never seen before. "You really can't mind your own business, can you?" he said, turning sharply onto a side road I didn't recognize. "Always watching, always hovering. Eliza found it annoying too, you know." My blood froze as I realized the man I thought I knew had vanished completely, and we were no longer driving toward home. "Where are we going?" My voice sounded small in the darkening car. Nathan ignored me, jaw clenched, as he drove deeper into unfamiliar territory. The highway had given way to secondary roads, then to unmarked desert paths as night swallowed the landscape. "Nathan, please talk to me," I tried again, fighting rising panic. "Talking is the problem, Martha." His voice was eerily calm now. "You talk too much, ask too many questions, just like Eliza started doing." My daughter's name in his mouth sent ice through my veins. "What happened to Eliza wasn't an accident, was it?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Nathan slammed the brakes. The car skidded on gravel, throwing me against the dashboard. Before I could recover, he'd reached across me, yanked open my door, and shoved me out onto the hard desert ground. "You're right. It wasn't." He loomed over me, silhouetted against the headlights. Those brakes didn't fail on their own. My mind reeled as he rummaged through my purse, pocketing my phone, wallet, and medications. He found Eliza's phone, too, his expression darkening. "Snooping already? You're even more dangerous than I thought." He crushed it under his heel. "Why?" I gasped, struggling to stand on the uneven ground. "She loved you." "Love doesn't pay offshore accounts," he sneered, grabbing my cardigan. "This too." Nights get cold in the desert. The reality of my situation crashed down. You're leaving me here to die. Consider it retirement. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Don't worry about your disappearance. I've already crafted the narrative. Grief-stricken mother, devastated by daughter's death, decides to take spiritual retreat. When you never return, well, people go missing all the time. Someone will find me, I said, even as the desolation around us mocked my words. Nathan laughed. We're 60 miles from the nearest highway. No water, no phone, temperatures dropping into the 30s tonight. He checked his watch casually. I'd give you 12 hours maximum. And even if by some miracle you survive, who would believe your story? A confused, traumatized old woman making wild accusations against a grieving widower. He got back in the car, then leaned out the window. I should thank you, Martha. Your death will complete my sympathetic public image, the man who lost everything. The taillights disappeared into darkness, leaving me alone under a vast, indifferent sky. My thin dress fluttered against my legs as the temperature plummeted. Distant thunder promised rain. I sank to my knees, overwhelmed by the double blow. My daughter murdered, myself left to die. Then my fingers touched something in my dress pocket, the locket with Eliza's photo. I won't let him win, I whispered to her image, struggling back to my feet. Somewhere in this darkness was survival, and beyond that, justice. I had to find both. I oriented myself toward the faint glow of lights on the horizon and took my first painful step forward. The desert night closed around me like a freezing vice. Each step became a negotiation with my aging body as cold seeped into my bones. My funeral heels, absurd now, broke within the first mile. I tore strips from my slip to bind them to my feet, David's voice echoing in my memory. The first rule of survival is adaptation, Martha. My late husband had been an avid outdoorsman, dragging me on countless wilderness trips I'd complained about. Now his lessons bubbled up from some deep reservoir of memory. Follow downhill water paths, I muttered through chattering teeth. They lead to civilization. When rain began, gentle at first, then driving, I found shelter beneath a rock outcropping. The darkness was absolute now, the distant lights I'd been following obscured. Terror threatened to overwhelm me as I huddled against the stone. This is how I die, I thought, while Nathan inherits everything. Then Eliza's face flashed in my mind. Not the polished influencer with millions of followers, but my little girl who once broke her arm climbing too high and refused to cry when they set the bone. Mom, being afraid doesn't help, she'd said then. Doing something does. I forced myself to think. Nathan believed my age made me helpless. I would prove him wrong. I gathered what I could, branches, dry brush protected by the overhang, and built a makeshift windbreak. I removed my sodden pantyhose and wrung them out, knowing wet clothing accelerated hypothermia. Every action was deliberate, each movement a defiance against the fate Nathan had planned for me. When dawn finally broke, I emerged stiff and exhausted, but alive. The storm had passed, revealing a transformed landscape. Water gathered in natural depressions, and I drank cautiously, remembering David's warnings about drinking too quickly after dehydration. I oriented myself again and continued walking, my improvised shoes disintegrating. By midday, the sun had become an enemy, beating down mercilessly. My lips cracked, my vision blurred, but I refused to stop. When I finally spotted the dilapidated service station, I thought it was a mirage. I staggered the final 100 yards, collapsing against the dusty gas pump as a weathered man in his 70s emerged from inside. Jesus Christ, he exclaimed, rushing forward. Lady, what happened to you? His name was Ray, I learned as he helped me inside. A Vietnam veteran who'd retreated from civilization years ago, he regarded me with wary kindness as he provided water, beef jerky, and a threadbare blanket. Family dispute, I managed, unsure how much to trust this stranger. I was left on the road. Ray's eyes narrowed, taking in my funeral attire, now filthy and torn. Wouldn't be the first time someone got abandoned out here, he said, though usually not someone like you. He offered his phone, an ancient landline. My fingers trembled as I realized I couldn't remember a single number. All my contacts had been in my cell phone. The only number I knew by heart was Eliza's. Only works for local calls anyway, Ray said, noticing my distress. Station's 20 miles from anywhere. Bus comes through once a week on Thursdays. As night fell again, Ray offered the back room with its narrow cot. Through the window, I watched another storm rage across the desert, the same storm that would have killed me without Ray's intervention. "Why would someone leave an old woman to die?" Ray asked from the doorway. I looked up at him, making a decision. "Because I know he murdered my daughter," I said. "And he thinks no one will believe me." Ray's weathered face hardened. "Try me," he said, pulling up a chair. "The sheriff thinks I'm just a confused old lady," I said bitterly, 2 weeks later. Ray and I stood outside the Baker City Sheriff's office, watching Sheriff Walters through the window as he spoke on the phone. With Nathan, undoubtedly. Ray spat on the ground. "Bastard bought your story hook, line, and sinker." I'd spent 14 days at Ray's station, helping with customers, sleeping in the back room, and planning my next move. In return for my work, Ray had paid me enough for the bus fare and new clothes from his limited stock. Jeans, a flannel shirt, and work boots that fit surprisingly well. When we'd finally made it to Baker City, I'd gone straight to the sheriff, only to watch his initial concern transform into skepticism as my story unfolded. "Let me get this straight," Sheriff Walters had said. "You believe your son-in-law murdered your famous daughter by tampering with her brakes, then tried to kill you by abandoning you in the desert?" "It's the truth," I'd insisted. His call to Nathan confirmed what I'd feared. Through the office glass, I'd watched Walter's expression soften as he listened, nodding sympathetically. Now, outside, Walters approached us with practiced professional concern. "Mrs. Reynolds, your son-in-law is very worried about you. Says you've been through a terrible trauma losing your daughter, that you left for a spiritual retreat, and he's been searching frantically." "That's a lie," I said flatly. Walters sighed. "He's organizing search parties, Mrs. Reynolds. Your face is on missing persons bulletins across 3 states. He sounds genuinely concerned." "He's covering his tracks," I countered, but I could see the sheriff had made up his mind. "I can arrange transport back to Portland," he offered. "She'll stay with me for now," Ray interrupted. "Got a spare room. She can work at the station until she figures things out." As we walked away, a newspaper headline caught my eye. "Widower of famous influencer organizes search for missing mother-in-law." The photo showed Nathan, eyes appropriately sad, distributing flyers with my face on them. "He's building his alibi," I whispered, "making me exactly what he said, a confused old woman no one will believe." Back at Ray's truck, I leaned against the door, momentarily overwhelmed. "What now? I can't go home. He'll finish what he started." Ray scratched his gray stubble. "First rule of war, know your enemy. Second rule, gather intelligence." "I'm not a soldier," I objected. "Neither was I before Vietnam," Ray countered. "But I learned fast. You will too." That night, in Ray's small house behind the service station, we plotted my resurrection. I needed documents, money, and most importantly, evidence. "Nathan thinks I'm dead or as good as," I said, spreading a map on the kitchen table. "That's my advantage. He won't be looking for a ghost." "What kind of evidence would prove he killed your daughter?" Ray asked. I remembered Nathan's secretive phone calls, his nervousness before the funeral, the mysterious man he'd been arguing with, financial records, phone records, and I need to find out who that man was at the funeral. "Big job for 2 old folks," Ray observed. I looked up from the map, something hardening inside me. "Nathan thinks my age makes me harmless. That's his mistake. What's the plan then?" "I need to get back to Portland without being recognized. I need to contact Eliza's lawyer. She mentioned changing her will recently. And I need to access Eliza's accounts." Ray nodded slowly. "Changing your appearance is easy enough. Rest will be harder." I touched the locket around my neck, the only possession Nathan hadn't taken from me. "He killed my daughter for money, then left me to die. I don't care how hard it is. I'm going to make him pay." "Revenge?" Ray asked quietly. "Justice," I corrected, meeting his gaze. "There's a difference. He's everywhere," I whispered, sinking lower in the passenger seat of Ray's truck. 2 months after my desert abandonment, we'd finally made it to Portland. The city was plastered with missing person posters bearing my face. Digital billboards flashed my image at major intersections. Local news vans were parked near my former home, where Nathan occasionally emerged to give tearful updates on the search. "Bastards running a full media campaign," Ray muttered, navigating cautiously through my old neighborhood. My disguise was simple but effective. Hair dyed gray instead of its natural white, cut into a short style I'd never have chosen before. Thick framed glasses, different clothes, and most importantly, a changed posture. I'd practiced for weeks, transforming from the straight-backed former teacher into a woman who hunched slightly, who moved with hesitant steps. "That's Diane's house," I pointed to a blue Craftsman 2 doors down from my former home. "If anyone will help us, she will." Diane Wells had been my friend for 30 years. When she opened her door, she stared at me without recognition, then gasped when I removed the glasses. "Martha?" Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God!" Inside, with curtains drawn, I told her everything while Ray kept watch at the window. "I knew something was off about him," Diane said when I finished. "The way he'd look at you when he thought no one was watching, like you were an inconvenience." "I need access to Eliza's emails," I explained. "Her accounts. Anything that might show what she discovered before she died." Diane's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. She made me an emergency contact on several accounts. Said it was just in case. I never thought. Within an hour, we'd uncovered alarming emails. In the weeks before her death, Eliza had questioned Nathan about unexplained financial transfers. In one message to her financial advisor, she'd written, "Found some concerning discrepancies in our joint accounts. Nathan says it's for investment opportunities, but the timing seems suspicious. And most damning, an email to her lawyer Jennifer Moore just 3 days before the accident. Need to discuss changes to my will ASAP. Found something that changes everything. Don't tell Nathan I'm coming to see you." "Jennifer," I breathed. "She must know what Eliza discovered." "You can't just walk into her office," Diane warned. "Your face is everywhere." "I have to risk it," I insisted. "She's the missing piece." That evening, using Diane's secure phone, I called Jennifer's private line, which Eliza had saved in her contacts. "Jennifer Moore," a cautious voice answered. "This is Martha Reynolds," I said. "Eliza's mother." Silence then. "Mrs. Reynolds, everyone's looking for you. Nathan Parker has been on every—" "Nathan tried to kill me," I interrupted, "after he murdered my daughter." Another long pause. "These are serious accusations. I need to know what Eliza told you before she died, why she changed her will." "I can't discuss this over the phone," Jennifer finally said. "If you're really Martha Reynolds, come to the parking garage below my office tomorrow at 9 a.m., level P3, space 42. Come alone." I hung up, heart pounding. "It could be a trap," Ray suggested. "Or it could be the evidence we need," I countered. That night, I couldn't sleep, haunted by the magnitude of what we were uncovering. Nathan hadn't just killed Eliza for her money. He'd planned it meticulously, created an elaborate cover story, and nearly eliminated the only person who might have suspected him. "I was supposed to die in that desert," I told Ray as dawn broke. "Everything since then is borrowed time." Ray handed me coffee in a chipped mug. "What will you do if you get the evidence?" I met his eyes steadily. "Make sure Nathan spends the rest of his life in prison." "And after?" The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on justice, on survival, I hadn't thought beyond it. "I don't know," I admitted. "I never planned for an after." The parking garage was eerily silent as I approached Space 42, clutching my borrowed coat around me. A silver Audi waited there, engine off, windows tinted. I hesitated, then tapped on the passenger window. It lowered smoothly, revealing Jennifer Moore, younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Get in quickly," she said. "We're not staying here." As we drove, Jennifer verified my identity with questions only the real Martha Reynolds would know. Satisfied, she steered toward the waterfront. "When Eliza came to see me 5 days before her death, she was scared," Jennifer began, parking far from other cars. She'd discovered Nathan had been systematically draining their accounts for months, moving money offshore. Millions, not thousands. My hands trembled in my lap. Why didn't she confront him? She did, privately. He gave excuses about investments, tax strategies. She pretended to accept it while gathering evidence. Jennifer reached into her briefcase and withdrew a sealed envelope. She knew it was dangerous. That's why she changed her will and left this for you. I opened it with unsteady fingers. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note in Eliza's flowing script. "Mom, if you're reading this, something's happened to me. Nathan isn't who we thought. The enclosed drive contains everything: account numbers, transfers, recordings from our home security system that I've been backing up to a private server. I was going to leave him next week. I'm so sorry for bringing him into our lives. I love you. Be careful. Tears blurred my vision. Recordings? Jennifer nodded grimly. Eliza installed hidden cameras after she got suspicious. The footage is automatically uploaded to a secure server. She gave me access codes for you just in case. We drove to an internet cafe in a part of town where I wouldn't be recognized. With Jennifer guiding me, I logged into Eliza's private server. The most recent folder contained dozens of video files from hidden cameras throughout their home. I clicked on one from the week before Eliza's death. Nathan appeared on screen in his home office, speaking to someone on speakerphone. The brake line has to look like it failed naturally. That curve on Eagle Mountain is perfect. Steep, no guardrails, rarely used except by locals. A voice responded, "This is murder, Nathan." "It's a business opportunity, Victor. 500,000 now, another 500 when it's done, and I have full access to the accounts." My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a cry. Nathan continued on screen. "After she's gone, the old lady becomes the next problem. She asks too many questions." I shut the laptop, unable to watch more. "That's the man from the funeral," I whispered. "Victor." Jennifer's face was pale. "This is beyond what I imagined. We need to take this to the police immediately." I shook my head. "They won't believe me. Nathan's created this narrative of a grieving, mentally unstable mother-in-law. We need more, something that can't be dismissed as manipulated evidence." "What are you thinking?" Jennifer asked. "We need Nathan to incriminate himself," I said slowly. "And I know exactly how to make that happen." "That's incredibly dangerous," Jennifer protested. "He's already tried to kill you once." I met her eyes steadily. "My daughter left me this evidence, knowing it might put her in danger. I won't waste her sacrifice." As we left the cafe, a breaking news alert flashed on a nearby television. Nathan stood at a podium, tears glistening perfectly for the cameras. "It's been 2 months since my beloved mother-in-law disappeared. Today, I'm doubling the reward for information on her whereabouts." His performance was flawless, the grieving widower now facing another tragic disappearance. Only I could see the calculated ambition behind his eyes, the satisfaction of a man who believed he'd eliminated all obstacles. "He thinks he's won," I said quietly. "That's exactly why he'll lose." "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Michael Grayson asked, his ex-detective's eyes evaluating me from across Diane's kitchen table. The retired Portland homicide investigator had been skeptical when Diane first contacted him, but the evidence had quickly convinced him. "Nathan killed my daughter and tried to kill me," I replied, my voice steady. "Now he's living in her house, spending her money, and building a public image as the grieving husband. Yes, I'm certain." It had been 3 weeks since meeting Jennifer, and our team had grown. Michael had used his police contacts to identify Victor Reyes, a mechanic with a history of insurance fraud. Jennifer had discovered that Nathan was accelerating his plans, preparing to sell the house and other assets. "The trap needs to be perfect," Michael emphasized. "This kind of narcissist is dangerous when cornered." Ray leaned forward. "Walk us through it again." I laid out the plan we'd refined over countless late-night sessions. First, an anonymous email to Nathan with just enough evidence to rattle him, but not enough to send him running. We suggest a meeting at the Riverside Cafe, public enough for safety, private enough for conversation. "You'll be wearing a wire," Michael added. "I've spoken with Detective Thompson from Financial Crimes. After seeing the evidence, she's willing to provide official support." "Nathan believes I died in the desert," I continued. "Seeing me alive will shock him, hopefully enough to make mistakes. I'll confront him with what we know, guide the conversation toward his confession." "And if he runs?" Ray asked. "There will be plainclothes officers positioned throughout the cafe," Michael assured him. "He won't get far." Jennifer spread financial documents across the table. "We've built an ironclad case for the fraud charges. The recordings provide circumstantial evidence for Eliza's murder, but a confession would seal everything." I touched the locket at my throat, my talisman through this nightmare. "Nathan is arrogant. He believes he's untouchable. That's his weakness." "And if he becomes violent?" Diane asked quietly. "I'll have a panic button," I said, "and Ray will be at a nearby table." "Damn right I will," Ray confirmed. With the Louisville Slugger I keep behind my register. The next morning I stood before Diane's bathroom mirror, transforming myself back into Martha Reynolds. I removed the gray dye from my hair, returning it to its natural white. I straightened my posture, becoming again the teacher who'd commanded classrooms for 40 years. "This disguise is the true Martha," I murmured, "not the one Nathan thinks he killed." Michael entered the final touches on the anonymous email, while Jennifer triple-checked the recording equipment. Detective Thompson arrived to brief us on the police positioning. "We're dealing with a calculating killer," she warned. "Don't underestimate him." As I prepared to leave, Ray handed me something small and metal. "My lucky compass," he explained gruffly. "Brought me home from Vietnam. It'll bring you home today." I slipped it into my pocket beside Eliza's locket. "I'm not afraid anymore," I realized aloud. I was terrified in the desert, terrified when I realized what Nathan had done. But now you're the hunter, not the hunted," Ray finished for me. In the car heading toward the cafe, I watched Portland pass by, the city where I'd taught generations of students, raised my daughter, built a life. Somewhere in those streets, Nathan was receiving our email, perhaps already planning how to silence this new threat. He had no idea the threat was a ghost, the woman he'd left to die, returned to ensure justice. "Ready?" Michael asked as we parked. I thought of Eliza, of the desert night, of everything that had brought me to this moment. "I've been ready since I took my first step away from where he abandoned me," I answered. The Riverside Cafe hummed with lunchtime conversations as I sat at the corner table, hands folded calmly despite my racing heart. Ray was positioned 3 tables away, Michael and Detective Thompson monitoring from an unmarked van outside. When Nathan walked in, the change in him was striking. The polished, camera-ready widower had given way to someone haggard and suspicious, eyes darting around the cafe. When he spotted me, genuine shock froze him mid-step. "Hello, Nathan," I said as he approached. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He recovered quickly, sliding into the seat opposite me with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Martha, thank God you're alive. Everyone's been so worried." "Stop," I interrupted. "We're past that performance now." His smile faltered. "I don't understand. Where have you been? Why didn't you contact anyone? The search parties have been looking for months." "Search parties you organized for someone you left to die in the desert," I replied evenly. Nathan's expression hardened. "You're confused, Martha. The grief, the trauma of losing Eliza. We know everything, Nathan." I placed copies of the financial documents on the table. The offshore accounts, the altered will, Victor Reyes. At Victor's name, Nathan's face drained of color. His eyes flicked toward the exit. "Running won't help," I continued. "These are copies. The originals, along with the recordings of you discussing my daughter's murder, are already with people who know what to do if anything happens to me." Nathan leaned forward, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "Recordings? You're bluffing. October 15th, your home office, 8:42 p.m. You told Victor the brake line had to look like it failed naturally, and that curve on Eagle Mountain was perfect." For an instant, naked panic flashed across Nathan's face before his mask returned. "Those recordings would never be admissible. Illegal surveillance." "Maybe not," I conceded. "But they led us to Victor." "But he's not as loyal as you might hope." "What do you want?" Nathan hissed. "Money? Is that it? I want you to admit what you did to Eliza, and to me." Nathan's laugh was bitter. "You think I'd confess to murder? I'm not stupid, Martha. You were stupid enough to leave me alive," I countered. "You should have checked that I was actually dead." His eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't have survived that night. How did you?" "My husband taught me wilderness survival," I said. "Something you wouldn't know about, having never actually cared about your wife or her family." Nathan's composure slipped. Eliza was becoming a problem. Questioning transfers, checking accounts she'd always ignored before. "Do you know how hard I worked, putting up with her ridiculous influencer career, waiting for the payoff?" I kept my expression neutral, though inside I was screaming. He was talking. The recording device was capturing everything. "And you," he continued, venom rising in his voice, "always watching, always hovering. After she died, I saw how you looked at me at the funeral. You suspected something. You killed my daughter for money," I said quietly. "I killed her because she was going to ruin everything," he snapped, then immediately realized his mistake. He glanced around frantically, but no one seemed to be paying attention to our conversation. "You've lost, Nathan," I said, rising from my chair. "Just like you lost when you abandoned an old woman you thought was helpless." As I turned to leave, Nathan lunged across the table, grabbing my wrist with bruising force. "You're not walking away from me," he growled. Ray was on his feet instantly, but before he could intervene, Nathan yanked me toward the exit, his other hand now gripping my upper arm. "Let's continue this conversation somewhere private," he snarled, dragging me toward the door. I caught Ray's eye and gave a subtle shake of my head. The plan had changed. Nathan was incriminating himself, but I needed more. Despite the danger, I allowed him to pull me outside toward his car. "Where are we going, Nathan?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. His smile was terrible. "Somewhere we can finish our earlier conversation properly. I won't make the same mistake twice." Nathan drove recklessly, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping my arm so tightly I knew it would bruise. The city gave way to suburbs, then to country roads. I recognized the route with growing dread. We were heading toward the same desert area where he'd abandoned me months earlier. "Poetic, isn't it?" Nathan said, noticing my recognition. "Bringing you back where this all started." "They'll find you," I said calmly. "The police know about Victor, about the money." "Police?" Nathan laughed harshly. "By the time they put everything together, I'll be in a country with no extradition treaty, living on your daughter's millions." The recording device Jennifer had given me was still active, capturing every word. I needed to keep him talking. "Why did you marry her?" I asked. "Did you ever love Eliza at all?" Nathan's face twisted with contempt. "Love? I married a small-time blogger with potential. I invested 6 years molding her into that influencer persona, building her following, arranging the brand deals while she played sustainable Earth Mother for the cameras. She built that career herself," I objected. "She had the face. I had the business sense," he snapped. "Then when she finally made the money I'd been waiting for, she got a conscience about how we spent it. Wanted to donate to environmental causes, start a charitable foundation. My money, going to save the fucking whales." His rage was building, words pouring out now. "And you were always there, encouraging her nonsense. Both of you, so concerned about the right thing, the ethical thing. So you decided to kill her," I said quietly. "I decided to cash out my investment," he corrected coldly. "The brakes were Victor's specialty, just enough damage to ensure failure on that specific curve. The perfect accident." My heart ached hearing him discuss my daughter's murder so callously, but I pressed on. "And me? Why not kill me at the same time?" "Too suspicious. 2 accidental deaths? But leaving you in the desert, that was improvisation. Your death would look like exposure if they ever found your body. Meanwhile, I'd be the doubly tragic figure, losing both wife and mother-in-law." We were deep into desert territory now, the road becoming rougher. Nathan turned onto a dirt track barely visible among the scrub. My panic button was in my pocket, but I knew the police tracking us might be too far behind. "You won't get away with this," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. Nathan stopped the car abruptly, throwing me against the dashboard. "I already did once. Your miraculous survival was just a temporary setback." He got out, circled to my door, and yanked me from the seat. We were in a desolate clearing surrounded by rock formations, utterly isolated. "No one will hear you out here," he said, pushing me roughly to the ground. I fell hard, pain shooting through my hip, but managed to press the panic button in my pocket. Nathan loomed over me, a disturbing calm settling over his features. "You know what I realized when I left you here the first time, Martha? How easy it is to eliminate problems. One moment you exist, the next." He snapped his fingers. "Is that how you felt when you killed my daughter?" I asked, fighting to remain conscious as pain radiated through my body. "Eliza was a business decision," he said coldly. "You're just a loose end." "And Victor? Is he a loose end too?" Nathan's eyes narrowed. "Victor was paid well to disappear." "Not well enough," I countered. "He's talking to the police right now." "You're lying," Nathan hissed, but uncertainty flickered across his face. "The police have everything. The financial records, the recordings, Victor's testimony. It's over, Nathan." He lunged forward, grabbing my throat. "Nothing is over until I say it is." As his fingers tightened around my neck, distant sirens pierced the desert silence. Nathan froze, then yanked me up as a human shield. "How?" he demanded, watching police vehicles approaching on the dirt road. I smiled despite the fear. "You thought you abandoned an old woman to die alone. Instead, you created the witness who would destroy you. Put your hands where we can see them and release the woman." The officer's voice boomed through a megaphone as patrol cars surrounded us, kicking up dust clouds in the desert clearing. Nathan's arm tightened around my throat. "Stay back or I'll kill her," he shouted, dragging me backward toward the rocky outcropping behind us. Detective Thompson emerged from the lead vehicle, weapon drawn. "It's over, Parker. We heard everything. The confession is recorded." Nathan's breath came in ragged pants against my ear. "This is your fault," he hissed. "You should have died in the desert like you were supposed to." My hip throbbed from the fall, but adrenaline kept me alert. I watched the officers spreading out, trying to find angles. I needed to give them an opportunity. "Nathan," I said calmly, "you're just making it worse." "Shut up," he snarled, but I could feel the tremor in his grip. The confident manipulator was crumbling as his carefully constructed world collapsed. "You know what Eliza told me before she died?" I continued softly. "She suspected something wasn't right with the accounts. She was planning to leave you." "Lies!" His arm jerked tighter, nearly cutting off my air. "She knew, Nathan. My brilliant daughter figured you out. That's why you had to kill her. Not for the money, because she saw through you." I said, "Shut up." Nathan shoved me roughly to the ground and reached into his jacket. Everything happened in a blur. Officers shouting, Ray's voice among them, the crack of a gunshot. I curled instinctively, expecting pain, but it was Nathan who cried out, clutching his shoulder as he collapsed. Officers swarmed forward, securing him as Detective Thompson rushed to my side. "Are you hurt, Mrs. Reynolds?" "Just my hip," I gasped as she helped me to my feet. "Is he—" "Shoulder wound," she confirmed. "He'll live to stand trial." As they handcuffed Nathan, he locked eyes with me from the ground, blood seeping through his designer shirt. "No one will believe you," he spat. "I'm the grieving husband, the concerned son-in-law. You're just a confused old woman." Detective Thompson yanked him roughly to his feet. "The recording device caught everything, Mr. Parker. Your confession to killing Eliza Reynolds, the admission that you left her mother to die in the desert, your financial motives. It's all admissible evidence now." Nathan's face contorted with rage as reality sank in. "This isn't over, Martha." Ray appeared at my side, supporting my weight. "Looks pretty over to me, son." As officers led Nathan to a patrol car, I watched him, diminished now, ordinary without his charm and calculation. The monster who had haunted my existence reduced to a handcuffed, bleeding man in the back of a police cruiser. "I need to sit," I murmured, suddenly exhausted. Ray helped me to a boulder, his weathered hand steady on my arm. "You did it, Martha. You got him." Detective Thompson approached with my recording device. "Textbook confession," she said admiringly. "Most people wouldn't have had the courage to keep him talking like that." "Most people haven't watched their child be buried," I replied softly. The desert stretched around us, the same landscape that should have been my grave, the same stones and sand that had witnessed my first desperate steps toward survival now witnessed the completion of that journey. "What happens now?" I asked Thompson. "Now we build the case. With the recording, Victor's testimony, the financial evidence, and Jennifer's documentation of the altered will. It's solid. Nathan Parker will spend the rest of his life in prison." As the police vehicles prepared to leave, I stood with Ray's help, looking out at the vast desert. Somewhere in that expanse lay the path I'd walked months ago, each painful step carrying me toward this moment of justice. "Ready to go home?" Ray asked gently. I touched Eliza's locket around my neck. "Yes," I said. "I think I finally am." 1 year later, I stood in the garden behind Eliza's house. My house now. The property Nathan had intended to sell for his escape remained instead as both memorial and mission headquarters. The trial had been mercifully swift. Nathan's recorded confession, combined with Victor Reyes's testimony and the financial evidence, left no room for reasonable doubt. The media coverage was intense but short-lived. Another sociopath who killed for money, eventually replaced in the headlines by newer tragedies. I smoothed my dress as I waited for the ceremony to begin. Through the windows, I could see the gathering crowd. Diane arranging flowers, Ray awkwardly adjusting his tie, Michael and Jennifer reviewing some paperwork. "Mrs. Reynolds?" A young assistant appeared at my elbow. "They're ready for you." I nodded, straightening my shoulders. The pain in my hip from that desert confrontation had healed, though it still ached before rain. Some wounds never completely disappear. They just become part of who you are. Inside, the former grand living room had been transformed into the headquarters of the Reynolds Foundation for Elder Justice. The walls that once displayed Eliza's carefully curated design aesthetic now held resources for seniors facing abuse, exploitation, and fraud. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jennifer began as the room quieted, "it's my honor to introduce our founder, Martha Reynolds." Applause greeted me as I approached the podium. The faces before me represented a cross-section of my new life: legal advocates, financial counselors, survivors of elder abuse, and the team who had helped me bring Nathan to justice. "1 year ago," I began, "I was abandoned in the desert by a man who believed my age made me disposable. A man who had already murdered my daughter for her money and thought nothing of eliminating her inconvenient mother." The room was silent, attentive. What he didn't count on was that age brings more than just wrinkles. It brings resilience, wisdom, and a lifetime of skills. In my case, wilderness survival skills my husband taught me decades ago. The determination I developed during 40 years of teaching. The patience that comes from raising a child. I gestured to the room around us. Nathan Parker saw me as weak because I was older. That prejudice became his downfall. Today, we launch programs to ensure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. Legal advocacy for seniors, financial protection services, and emergency response systems for elders in crisis. After the ceremony, I walked with Ray through the garden, now named in Eliza's honor. The spring flowers were blooming, a riot of colors she would have loved. "Got something for you," Ray said gruffly, handing me a small package. "Been meaning to give it back." Inside was the battered compass he'd lent me the day of the confrontation with Nathan. I smiled, returning it to his weathered palm. "Keep it. You might need it to find your way to your new office upstairs." Ray had become the Foundation's security consultant, moving from his remote service station to a small apartment above the garage. Diane managed our volunteer program, while Jennifer handled legal affairs. Michael's network of former police contacts provided crucial connections to law enforcement. "You ever visit him?" Ray asked suddenly. I knew he meant Nathan, serving consecutive life sentences in a maximum security prison. "No," I answered truthfully. Justice was enough. As evening fell, the guests departed, leaving me alone in the garden. I took Eliza's locket from my pocket. I no longer needed to wear it constantly, the way I had during those desperate months. "We did it, sweetheart," I whispered to her photo. "And now we're helping others." The woman who had stumbled through the desert, dehydrated and terrified, would never have imagined this outcome. That woman had only wanted to survive the night, but survival had been just the beginning. I returned inside to where my team, my new family, was clearing up after the event. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new seniors needing help, new battles against those who saw the elderly as easy targets. Nathan had abandoned me in the desert, believing my age made me vulnerable. Instead, it had made me unstoppable. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.